Hello everyone, so this is just a quick note before you continue into the video. So as you might notice, this is the part one of a two-part series of answering your questions as a celebration for my 6 months of being in the Common Corner. I filmed the video and had so much fun with it and realized at the end that it was 2 hours long. So I just thought, I think what might be better is to combine my kind of introduction of myself as well as a kind of questions about me and my life and medicine into one video, and then have the journaling questions all in one video as well. So I have divided the topics as such, and I hope that you enjoy watching both of them or one of them or none of them. Anyways, happy 6 months to the Common Corner. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Common Corner. And I'm also kindly welcoming you back to the Common Corner if you have been here before. If this is your first time, I am inviting you to celebrate 6 months of the Common Corner channel. I started this channel on the 14th of January 2024, and now it is the 14th of July, hence it has been exactly 6 months, right? Yes, okay. And the reason I started this channel, as some of you may know, is to make a video for my sisters who are twins. It was their birthday present, actually. Their birthday's on the 13th of January, and I made the first video on the 14th of January. Slightly delayed, but I know that their day was going to be full of celebrations, so I uploaded it on the Sunday so that they can sit down and have a journal with me have a moment of journaling with me, because we all share a love of journaling, me and my sisters. And I had been wanting to kind of talk about it a lot more than I normally had the chance to do. And I just thought that sometimes we have a hard time kind of scheduling calls and such, as our lives are all very different, but I thought that making the video would be the best way to get to just chat to them about my system. And then there was a lot more people that ended up finding that video and joining me in this corner of the internet, and have been following my journey of analog archiving ever since. Thank you to everyone who has been joining in the last 6 months, and I hope that you stay here as long as you'd like, and I hope that you enjoy kind of the celebration of the Common Corner today. For me, it feels very important to celebrate milestones. It helps me reflect on what has happened during the time of kind of climbing towards this milestone, and just really kind of pay some gratitude for it, I guess. Yes, let's tune into the day. So at the moment it is a very beautiful sunny morning in London. There's not a cloud in sight, which is very unique to this summer because it has been very, very cloudy and quite cold. It is currently 8 a.m. This is unusual for me. But I did wake up a bit after 5 a.m. today, and I simply could not wait to talk to you and to make the celebration video. And I think because of that I couldn't fall back asleep. So I woke up and I got out of bed a bit before 6 after some minutes of trying to fall back asleep, and I opened my curtains and I just saw this beautiful light, and the sun was up, and I just felt like I needed to go outside, and that I did, and I went and enjoyed this very quiet Sunday morning at like a bit past 6 a.m. in the park nearby, and I was just so grateful about life in general. And now I came back, I had some breakfast, I had some tea, and I am ready to go. As the celebration, or like for this celebration, I have my favorite drink. It is the Hong Kong styled milk tea with coffee. Someone from Hong Kong earlier this year said that my pronunciation of yin yang is acceptable. So I will go with that. The name of the drink is Yin Yang. Oh, sometimes I nail it and sometimes I just butcher the pronunciation, but yes. And I added some special round ice cubes right here to keep my drink cold for as long as possible. So I will be enjoying that throughout. And I thought that as for any kind of celebration, because I guess it's the half birthday of the Common Corner, we would blow a candle. This candle will be keeping us company throughout the video, so I don't want to blow this one. But I have a fresh candle that I got a few days ago. It's green because I have really been enjoying green these days. So I will just be lighting this one, making a wish and blowing it. And I'll kind of make a wish on behalf of the Common Corner because the Common Corner is so much more than just me. But I'm the only human here today to blow the candle. So, or maybe, I don't know if it's a bit silly, but I think it might be fun if also you blow the screen and you can also make a wish. I'll count us down so that you have time to make your wish. Okay. So I hope the camera isn't heating up with this candle. So I'm just gonna count us down. Happy birthday, or not birthday, happy 6 months to the Common Corner. 3, 2, 1. Okay. I wonder how that smoke looks on the camera. Whee! Okay, we'll let it smoke, and because I'm very afraid of like pinching this. Should I do it? Ah! No, it's not going. Okay. My mother always used to do this and it would impress me so much. Like she would put out the flame with just her fingers. But I'll let it smoke for a bit. Oh no, is my room now very much full of smoke? That is smoking a lot more than I expected. Okay, now it's stopped. I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, so on Wednesday, so earlier this week, I mentioned that I was going to have the celebration today, and I asked if anyone has any questions. I would love to answer them, and I would do a little bit more of a formal introduction of myself, the human behind the Common Corner. And there was many questions. There were so many questions, and I have tried my very best to compile all of them in these piles here to make sure that we cover all of them, because I really wanted to cover all of them. I didn't want to leave anything behind. There was a few questions that were kind of similar in nature, so I kind of tried to combine them into one. Hence, or since this kind of summer series of videos are not going to be edited, as you might have noticed, there's no title, Welcome to the Common Corner, in the beginning of the video. And yeah, so since these videos are non-edited, kind of just to make them a bit more easier for me to upload during my holiday, I guess, I realized that I can't put the questions on the screen. But then I was like, hey, this is an analog channel. We can do the questions in an analog manner. So even though they were asked digitally, I wrote them down. There's a little list of kind of more personal questions. There's a little list of medicine-related questions, and there's a big list of questions on journaling and analog archiving. So we'll start with this one, go into the medicine bit, because I guess that's something that you will and you have heard quite a bit about, as that's what I study. And then we will spend the majority of the video talking about journaling. And oh, I am so excited. I'm so excited. Let's first also address the elephant in the room, which is my personal gift, or I guess I shouldn't say that the gift is from me, because it is the kindness of this Joe Journals here on YouTube that made it possible for me to receive my kind of dream fountain pen. Ever since I learned about fountain pens a few months ago, I had been making kind of very careful research about what I would like to have as my fountain pen. But also I did not want to spend any money or like much money on them, because I was not sure if I would even like the idea of writing with a fountain pen, if I would like the feeling of it, and so on. And then Alex Thomas Creative here on YouTube as well as on Instagram was selling their fountain pen. This beautiful, I can't remember what the color is called again. I think it's burgundy, maybe. They were selling this fountain pen, which is just a classic Kaweco Sport. And I had known about Kaweco, and it had seemed kind of like the most appealing starter fountain pen for me. So I jumped on that opportunity and got this secondhand from Alex. Thank you again, Alex. And when it arrived, I just fell completely in love, and I knew that fountain pens were a thing that I would want to go on with. But ever since I had started to learn about fountain pens, and I had my eyes on the Kaweco as a brand, it wasn't necessarily this classic Sport that I had my eye on. It was the Kaweco Elle Sport in matte black that I had been thinking about from the start. But it is a bit more on the expensive side, especially kind of for myself, who has never had an expensive pen before. Like, all of my pens that I've ever owned have been maximum £4, or like €5 maybe. So spending any more than that felt a bit strange, even for this one, even though it's really not expensive at all. Felt a bit strange. So I wanted to make sure that I loved it before getting this one. I mentioned about this being my kind of dream pen to Joe from this Joe Journals when we visited the Manchester Stationery Fest, and Joe was like, oh, what a coincidence, I have one of them and I don't use it ever, it's just sitting in my drawer. So we met up actually yesterday for a little coffee, lemonade and journaling friendly date, I guess I would say. And Joe brought this one along with me, and it was a very kind exchange, and thank you so much, Joe, once again. I now have my hands on this aluminium Kaweco Sport, and I have been writing with it ever since yesterday, and I am completely in love. It fits in my hand like a glove. It's a medium nib, whereas this one was a fine nib, so it's a bit different, but I'm actually quite enjoying the medium nib, but I would like to also get an extra fine nib for this specific pen. And I just wanted to address that because yesterday in my Instagram stories I had said that I got something exciting, and this is definitely the most exciting part of yesterday, and I feel like it's almost like a gift to the channel for 6 months celebration. All right, so let's get started. I'm aware that I don't have 5 hours to talk, even though I would like to. And I don't know how much phone storage I have as well, so I guess I'm also trying to be wary of that. Hopefully we'll have enough time to go through everything. So, a formal introduction of myself. Let's start with that. I'm gonna put these to the side. So, I am the person behind the comment corner. Hello, my name is Elle. It's pronounced just as the letter L. And I am originally from Finland. I have lived in Germany for 5 years in the very beginning years of my life. Then I have lived in Finland for 5 years after that, before moving to Florida, the US, for 5 years. And then after living in Florida for 5 years, me and my family moved back to Finland for 5 years before I moved by myself to England, UK. Hence my accent is quite mixed, and there was a question if I'm from Ireland, and I actually get that quite a bit. I think it's the mix of like Finnish, English, like American English as well as English, British English. And as a result of that, I have this strange accent that perhaps sounds a bit Irish at times. And I've also had some Irish friends while living in the UK, maybe I've also inherited something from there. So yes, I am from Finland, and in Finland my name is pronounced as Elle, so we pronounce all the letters. But since we moved to the US, I just got so many questions of how my name is pronounced, and a lot of people kept on wanting to pronounce my name as Ellie, but Ellie is actually another type of name in Finland, like written a bit differently. So I really didn't identify with that at all. But then I felt like Elle is kind of like the nickname for Elle. Hence, I have been going with Elle ever since living in the US, which was now over 10 years ago. I think it's 12 years since we moved there. So for 12 years now, I have been going with Elle. For most of my time, I guess, because I've lived abroad more time than I've lived in Finland for the past 12 years. So yes, I am so glad to meet you. Finally, I decided that I wanted to introduce myself more formally, as a lot of people have been asking what they should refer me as, and you are so welcome to refer me as the comment corner, refer me as CC, or refer to me as Elle. And there was also a question of how old I am, and I am in my 20s at the moment. I don't think age really matters that much, so I don't really feel the age that I am, so I'm just thinking that I'm a person in my 20s at the moment. I am a medical student, I'm a journaler, as in not a journalist, but a journaler, and I'm a sister. I have 4 younger sisters, so if you ever get the big sister energy from this channel, that would be a very appropriate energy, as I have been a sister for 4 sisters for quite some time now. They are all so lovely and so smart, and they all love to keep books. They all have their own systems for that, and I'm just so grateful for that. But they do all live in Finland, hence I don't see them very often, maybe a maximum of 3 times a year. Hence I love I wanted to start making these videos for them originally, so that we can kind of have this conversation about journaling digitally. And I also do photography, and I am an enjoyer of a calm life, although that is sometimes difficult with being a medical student, but I am trying my best to kind of manage it all and still keep my lifestyle as something of a calm one. This is just so good. I highly recommend to anyone who likes coffee or tea, or coffee and tea. It's really delicious. Okay. Yes. Okay, so let's move on. I think it's going to take some time for me to get used to kind of being directed to what I'm talking about with the questions, but I'm really enjoying it. Or I think I will, at least. So, what is my native language, and what do I use when journaling, planning, or note-taking? And by the way, I mentioned that you can ask questions here on the YouTube community tab, or if you'd like to be anonymous, you can go over on my Instagram and ask the question in a question box there. So if you ask the question here on YouTube, I wanted to write down your username just so that I know who is asking the question, and those are public anyway, so I thought that would be okay. And if you don't see a username on the question, then it has been a question from Instagram, or a question that is kind of combining multiple questions in one. Okay, so let's go back to this one. My native language is Finnish, so the language from Finland. I think there's only about 6 million people, even a bit less might be, that speak it worldwide. It is a very difficult language to learn. Maybe I'll say something here in Finnish. I will say, moi, minun nimeni on Elle, ja on oikein hauska tutustua teihin. So it is an interesting language, and I was actually going through my journals today to have a look at how much Finnish is in there actually, and it's not a lot. And I think the reason for that is because I only began very intentional journaling once I had lived in the US for about 5 years, or 4.5 years. And during the US, during my time there, I learned English from scratch. So I did not know, I think I knew the word like carrot and meatball, and I knew the phrase, the girl is watching TV. I don't know why that phrase always stuck in my head at school, but I was really bad at English. I've always been really bad at languages in general. But once we moved to the US, I kind of had to learn English in order to go to the school there. Well, I learned as I went on. And it became a really, really strong language for writing for me. And even though it's not the most, it's not the language of emotion for me, I find journaling in English extremely useful because I can kind of take a little bit of a step back away from my emotions and be a bit more reflective about them rather than just talking about the emotion itself, if that makes. And I find reflecting on emotion rather than talking about the emotion more useful. Although at times, if I feel like it, I might pop a sentence or two in Finnish in my journals. And the first journal that I started with in 2016, actually the introduction page is in Finnish, but we will have a look at that a bit later because it's quite amusing. Those first few pages of deciding that I'm now going to journal, and this is going to be the thing that I like to do. I have been journaling or keeping some kind of a book ever since I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, but all the way from being about 7 or 8 all the way to my kind of early teens, or late teens even, the journaling was very much not intentional, and it was just a place to subconsciously collect things and keep a track of things that happened, but I was doing it very subconsciously. There was no system to it, and yes, it's just very interesting to think about that. So everything before moving to the US was in Finnish, and everything after living in the US has been in English. Maybe I will place these under here. Where on your path of your life are you in right now, and where would you like to head in the future? It's such a beautiful question asked on Instagram. So I guess the path in my life right now is that I am in my 20s. I have just now lived a bit more than 3 years on my own, away from my family's house. I'm just starting to find fragments of my true identity and really come to peace with who I am. I'm learning so much in my life right now, both academically, as I've just finished my 3rd year of medical school and I have 2 more to go. I'm also trying to decide if medicine is the thing that I want to keep going forwards with in this time of my life, because the field itself is a bit interesting at the moment, especially in the UK. I am going to definitely finish my degree because I am enjoying medicine as an academic practice, but I am not quite sure how that's going to start forming itself into something different after I finish medical school. And that's kind of career-wise where I am at in my life right now. Simultaneously, I'm trying to dip my toes into the creative aspect of medicine. There is a small emerging field of creative inquiry in medicine, which is kind of this practice of using different creative practices to talk about the experiences that people are experiencing in medicine, in healthcare, as healthcare professionals. And there's a couple of researchers and doctors who are in this field who are big role models for me, and that's something that I'm trying to dip my toes in more and more, because that's kind of where I would like to head more in the future. I would like to be in this creative conversation within medicine while simultaneously doing clinical work part-time. So yes, that's what I would like to head in the future career-wise. But when it comes to more personal life, I am living with a flatmate at the moment, and it has been wonderful for the last 2 years, and before that also I lived with flatmates for a few years, and I am looking forward to moving out of this flat in about a month. It's a place where I have found kind of my first ever home, maybe, where I have truly come to peace with myself. Living with my family was always wonderful, but it wasn't always the easiest, maybe because we're a big family. So now living with just one person has been kind of refreshing and new. But I think it is time to move on from this flat, and I am actually moving in with my partner, whom I met in London, and we've had a beautiful connection over the last 3.5 years that I've lived here. And we're very excited to kind of share our first home together in a month. So that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to in the near future. I would like to travel a little bit more, and I would love to keep embracing this dear hobby of mine, this practice of analog archiving my life. So I think there's a lot of things that I want to stay the same in the future. So I would love to head in the same direction that I am heading right now. I want to keep on this path. I think that's my reflections for now. We will see how that changes in the next 6 months. I think I will do a similar Q&A once the comment corner turns 1 year old. So, what other hobbies do you have other than journaling? I do photography. Photography has been my kind of main hobby and interest for maybe 11 years now, and it has been my way of archiving my life until I found a system to archive my life in a bit more of an analog way, because I've always been doing digital photography and I haven't even started to think about film yet, even though film photography is something that I would have always loved to do, but I think I've never had the funding for it because it is a bit more expensive than digital photography. So photography is definitely one thing, and I guess here I found this randomly in one of my notebooks, and it's actually my graduation photo from high school. But other than I think a lot of people just take quite a simple portrait, but because I've always loved photography, I really wanted my graduation portrait to be something unique. So I asked a friend of mine to travel with me to Norway, and we went to the mountains, and I carried my dress and my graduation cap that we have in Finland. Is quite a unique graduation cap, and I wore those for this photo shoot that I directed with him. So I look very different now, so I don't mind sharing this photo because I don't even look like the same person anymore. And it's not very detailed, but this is one of my favorite photographs of myself, maybe. I've always loved kind of calm expression and calm insight into the rest of the world, and that's how I love to document the world around me, is through these calm moments of stillness and peace. And I think this photo of myself kind of reflects all of that. I just thought I would show it to you. So I sent out all of these cards to everyone who came to my graduation party, and I think I actually had them there so people can take it, and it just says thank you here in Finnish. I just thought that was just a very kind of tactile piece of my photography that I wanted to show you. Another person took the photo, but I kind of directed it, so thank you to that person. Yeah. Other than photography, I've loved to read my whole life, but ever since starting medical school, that has kind of toned down. And about maybe it was 1.5 years ago that, after having like a 2-year break, I picked up a book by Murakami, Norwegian Wood. I think is a good one to start with as well. And basically for a year, all I read was Japanese literature, but it got me back into reading, so I'm grateful for that. And so reading is another thing. And I guess while we're in the kind of topic of reading, so stories as well as photography, combination of photography and stories, I think it's moving image. So film and movies have become a big interest of mine as well. And other hobbies. Someone's playing music outside and it's a bit distracting, but I hope it's not too loud for you guys. Yes, other hobbies. I would say one other hobby that comes to mind right away is coffee. I love coffee in all shapes and forms, and I am an active seeker for cafes in London. I would say that I am somewhat of a critic, not in the negative way, but where I love to observe different things in this world. I love to observe the books that I read, the films that I watch, and the cafes that I go to, and look at the differing aspects of them and kind of make an overall rating for them. So I guess that's something that I like to do. And I have a long list of cafes and their kind of pros and cons and their ratings in my commonplace book. So coffee is another thing, and I love to make it myself as well. And I could go on. Yes. What type of camera do I use for my photography? So at the moment I'm using, if I'm doing digital photography with my camera, and I'm making a very intentional photo shoot, or I'm going out to do some street photography, I usually use my Nikon D3300. So that's the kind of body of the camera. It's very old. It's my first camera I ever got when I was 16, and I have been using it ever since. I have not found the need for another camera. I've gotten few other lenses, but the one I use right now is like, I think it's like the 15 to 80 millimeter lens. So it's like a zoom lens. You can zoom in and out. I forgot like the aperture for it, but yes. And then I have like a portrait lens as well, because I love taking portraits. I love drawing portraits. I just love portraits in general and the detail of someone's kind of identity. So that's the camera I use at the moment, and it serves me very well. But I think more and more, as I am out and about, I use my phone to take photos. I usually only try to take one photo, so if I see something I like, I just take one photo and I move on, kind of replicating this Polaroid aspect of photography, where you can just take that one photo and use it as you wish and edit it and make it work, basically. I love this question from Alex Thomas Creative, and I maybe should have picked these in advance because I think I'm gonna have a hard time picking my top 3 favorite cafes in London, but I'm gonna go with my gut and what I have been enjoying recently, my top 3 favorite cafes recently. So I would say the Watch House Cafe. Maybe I should write these down actually. The Watch House cafes in London are brilliant. It is a chain, but it is a really, really good and a really good quality chain. And the reason I like that it's a chain is that you can kind of find it in various spots around London, and they always deliver. Their atmosphere is brilliant, their coffee is absolutely brilliant, and everything is just very stylish and minimal. Watch House. Any of the Watch Houses are brilliant. I especially like the one that is in Somerset House in central London. And one special thing about them is that depending on the type of coffee bean that you choose, that you'd like your coffee being made out of, they will give you a card that has the name of the bean, the way that it's been roasted, where it's from, the way that it is best prepared, etc. And you get to keep the card. So brilliant for anyone who loves journaling and keeping a track of their ephemera. Another favorite of mine is a Japanese coffee house, but they also do tea. So I guess it's a Japanese tea house with coffee as well. It's called Katsute 100. And another favorite of mine, I would say that recently, and this is where we went yesterday with Jo, and I took her there because it's usually very calm, even in weekends, and it's in the kind of slab central of London, next to Piccadilly Circus. It's called the Rose Bakery, and it's on the 3rd floor of of the Dover Street Market. So you go to the Dover Street Market, you just type it on Google and you find their lift and you go to the 3rd floor and it's right there. Very lovely. Once again, very good coffee, and they do a couple of other nice soft drinks as well, kind of homemade soft drinks. Those are my 3 favorite cafes in London at the moment. They change with time, but that is my gut instinct. Thank you, Alex, for that lovely question. What is your most prized possession? Once again, I wish I would have thought about this in a bit more detail, but I think I will enjoy going with my gut through this video. I guess when it comes to prized possessions, I would say that they are things that you would not be able to recreate or get again. So if I lose that thing, I would not be able to get it back. I guess we're just ignoring all of these journals here. There's this pile here, but I also have these here, and I also have these. That's a heavy pile. Okay, so we're gonna ignore all of my journals because they are a direct documentation of my life. They are my most prized possession. But I feel like that's an obvious answer, so I'm going to say something else. I'm looking at it right now, and it is a photograph on my wall. And there is in this photograph, it's a bit larger than A4. And it is a photograph of a man sleeping under a kind of mosquito net on a beach, and I am not sure if that's his permanent home or what, but it is this photo is by a kind of documentative photographer, a street photographer, and this man is just sleeping on the beach under a mosquito net. He looks very peaceful. He has his blanket and everything, and I purchased this photo at a market in Lille, Lille, in France, when I was doing a interrailing trip, so going around Europe with trains with my friends in 2018. And I saw this photo and I immediately was just, I am getting this photo. It was also in the beginning of our trip, so I carried this photo in my backpack throughout the couple weeks journey. I returned back home to Finland and I put it above my bed because I was like, if this man can sleep so peacefully, so can I. And I have had it above my bed ever since. So for 6 years now, I have had it above my bed. I really am craving to show this photo to you guys. I think I will need to move the camera. This photo. This is the photograph. I don't know Jody Bieber who took this photograph, but and I don't know any of his other work, but I somehow don't want to because this is just the one that I want to know from this one person, from this one photographer. I think the things that I have on my wall are all of my prized possessions. I have a lot of bird feathers that I have collected from various parts of my life. And I have this receipt from a beautiful kind of homeware shop in Hong Kong. I think our walls have been plastered with something that makes it very difficult for tape to stick. So I've needed to put a bunch of tape in order for this photo to stay put. And hence, like, some of it is peeling and it's catching a bit of dust. So apologies for the way that looks, but it gives it a bit of a charming feeling, I guess. Okay. I guess this question didn't land under any of the other categories. Someone on Instagram asked if I will ever be making a Patreon. And actually recently this is something that I have been thinking about because I have been kind of craving to make a lot of extra videos that are very much out of my normal schedule. But I think that these videos might not be as, maybe they won't be very polished, and a lot of it might be just me rambling about something very minor within my practice of analog archiving. And I have been thinking like, maybe not everyone is interested in this, and but there might be a few that are, and maybe these few people might be individuals that would enjoy supporting my work, although I'm not sure. But yeah, so I have been thinking that maybe a very, very cheaply priced Patreon subscription might be a place for that, and where I can have a bit more of a conversation with the community rather than just answering comments, because I feel like sometimes answering comments is a bit, the topics are quite limited to the topics of the video. So I have been thinking about making a Patreon, but I think I want to really give a lot of intentional thought for it and think what I can offer on there, exactly what I can offer, so that you would know what you are subscribing for over there. So it's not completely out of the question at all, and thank you for asking that question, because it kind of gives me the idea that at least someone is interested in the idea. If you'd like to, if you're commenting on this video and at all feel like a Patreon or like a more close, I don't know how to word this, but a little bit of a smaller community, although this is a small community already, but maybe perhaps a community, an online community where we can have more conversations, because I feel like Patreon is very much a space where you can really easily have conversations about things, some like things that are a bit more maybe like niche, even more niche than this community already is. Yeah, let me know, but also no pressure, because it's not something that's maybe needed right now. I feel like this is serving us and this community quite well at the moment, and yeah, but in case there ever is a kind of like a feeling that a Patreon would be a good idea, it would of course be nice to know if anyone else is interested in it. But yes, thank you for this question. That marks the end of these more non-specific questions about myself. Thank you for all of them. I guess we will move on to medicine now, as there was a few questions. Actually, I was a bit surprised. There was a few questions about medicine, but I guess I do talk about it quite a lot here, so it makes sense that people are curious. So, what made you choose the medical profession? I think the idea first came into my head when I was in primary school. And I feel like with the medical profession, it's either that people kind of have thought about it since they were very little, or that they chose it when they were a lot older. And I'm one of those people in the first category, where I was, I think, 7 years old, and I got diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune condition affecting your joints. Usually you only get it when you're a bit older, but sometimes happens in children as well, and I was one of those children. And I spent a lot of time in hospitals, because they were first trying to figure out what on earth was going on with my joints, because it's not a very common condition to have. So I spent a lot of time in hospitals, in blood tests, and in various imaging rooms, MRIs and x-rays, etc. And once the doctors finally found out what was going on, and they were actually able to ease my pain, I think the gratitude and admiration towards the doctors made me feel like, oh, I want to kind of somehow, if I even can, pay them back, or pay the field back. And then that just made me think like, oh, I just want to work in that field. And whenever anyone would ask what I want to do when I was older, or when I'm an adult, all the way from when I was 7 years old until maybe when I was 16, I would always say that I want to go to medical school. And I think then when I was 16, when photography had started to kind of really solidify for me, I was thinking about studying photography or studying medicine. But eventually it came down to the idea for myself that having lived in the US and being in an international environment, moving back to Finland was a bit difficult on those ends, and I wanted to be somewhere international again. Somehow I felt like my chances of getting into medical school were better than studying photography. So I decided that I would try and get into medical school outside of Finland, because I thought that that was the more easy thing to do. But simultaneously, there was other factors as well that deviated me towards medicine, which was that I can always do photography, even when I'm studying medicine, but I won't be able to do medicine on the side of photography. It would be difficult to do medicine part-time while being a full-time photographer. So because of that, that was also the thing. And I just thought that I can always switch my career into photography, but I think as life goes further and further, it might be more difficult to get into medical school. And hence I just thought, okay, now in this early part of my life, I'll try and get into medical school. And then I think it was just always that aspect of feeling like, I think this is the way of helping people that makes the most sense to me. This is the way of contributing to the community that just makes the most sense to me. And ever since I had first kind of gotten that idea of medicine when I was really young, I was very happy to notice that at school, biology, chemistry, those were the subjects, the science subjects were the ones that I was most interested in naturally. And I was doing kind of also the best, and I was very naturally understanding of those concepts. So that just gave me the confidence that I can do this and I can apply and I can get in. I was always just very blindly confident that I can get in if I just try. And it was a long process of applying to the UK. And I think there was another question that perhaps I will answer here now at the same time, where someone was curious why I chose to go to medical school in England. And I think it was what I said earlier, that I wanted to be in a more international environment. I wanted to be abroad for my studies. I think a lot of it was because I lived in quite a small city in Finland. I wanted to be somewhere else. And I was just missing that culture of people from everywhere being in one city, which was very much Miami and Florida in general. I think the US in general is where a lot of people from everywhere come together. So I wanted to be in that environment again. So that was one thing. And I also simultaneously was in a need of a break from Finland somehow. It was a very interesting internal thing. And simultaneously, I was just like, I was very ambitious. So I wanted to go to the best medical school, like a really good medical school. And of course, education in Finland is brilliant. There's brilliant doctors are made in Finland, and on top of it, the education is free. But somehow just my ambition of being in a big city and feeling like there are so many opportunities here, which has been proven correct. And getting to study in English as well was another big thing. As well as I had fallen in love with London, having just visited here for 4 or 5 days in 2018. And I was just like, when I was here, I was like, oh, I want to live here someday. I want to work as a doctor here someday. Of course, not knowing about any of the realities of being a doctor in the UK, but it was just a dream. And my friend actually then in my high school just asked me, why don't I just go study there rather than needing to wait many years to work there? And that just stuck in my head. And I was like, yes, that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to do it. And I just did everything I needed to do, which was sometimes even a bit too much. But I did everything I needed to do to get here, and I made it in the end. And I have been very grateful for my decision to come to England to study. I got into my first choice school in London, and it has been good for me. It has not been easy at all, but it has been good. And I will always be grateful for my decision to come here, as well as I will always be grateful for all the support that I received when I was kind of trying to get into the medical profession. So what are my ambitions with my studies? And someone said that they really love hearing about them every week, which I'm really happy to hear, because sometimes I know that medicine can be quite intense, and I always try to approach it from a bit more of a calm perspective, one that isn't so obsessed with the academics of it all. I'm not obsessed with grades. I am not obsessed with being the best in my cohort. I am just here to enjoy my studies and make sure that I move on with them. So my ambitions with my studies is that I want to finish medical school. I want to enjoy learning about psychiatry next year, when we have a work placement in psychiatry. I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. And I want to integrate my creative side with medicine. And I want to make that work. So those are my ambitions. And I want to graduate by 2026, which is in 2 years. And I just want to kind of enjoy it as much as possible. I don't want to burn out again as I did in high school. And I think my ambitions with my studies are to just kind of be healthy with them and show everyone who is aspiring to do medicine, or anyone who is in medicine at the moment, that even though the field is intense, it's your kind of own perspective and your own take on it that determines your experience with it. And I want to be an example of that, even though it's not very easy. But I think it's possible. It's possible to live a calm and healthy life even when in medicine. There are always options to, of course, it comes with privilege. I 100% recognize that, but even if you need to work a lot, your downtime and recovery is what determines your overall feeling of the field, I think. Actually, it's such a huge topic, but I will definitely be going into it a lot more in the next few years. But my ambitions are to get through medical school, to enjoy my training, and to include all of the other aspects of my life alongside medicine, and not put any of them completely to the side. What type of medicine do you hope to practice? Perhaps a specialty? This was asked by a lot of people. So I had mentioned psychiatry already. I love the academic aspect of psychiatry. I think it's super interesting to learn about the human mind, about the human's mental health, when mental health goes wrong, the different conditions that can arise from it, especially the genetic ones. And especially children's psychiatry, I think it's especially very interesting when it comes to the academia of it. However, I don't have any experience of working in psychiatry yet. I have not been a student on a psychiatric ward yet. I have not been at a psychiatric hospital. However, in just any daily practice of medicine throughout the days of being in the hospital last year, or during this last academic year, psychiatry is a part of every single ward in the hospital. The psychiatrists are always called in to do assessment and to talk to the patients. So that aspect of it is very interesting, that you get to be a part of so many different specialties while within psychiatry, while having that perspective of the mind. And so that's something that I am perhaps hoping to go into. However, I have found a lot of other specialties also interesting during this past year. I had a couple of days in the intensive care unit, the ICU. This was something that I never thought that I would enjoy, because I thought it would be very intense, but actually the ICU work that you do is just very detailed and precise, and there's a lot to do with the medications and kind of the anesthetist. I always struggle with these words. Anesthetist, who deal with the anesthesia of the patients. You work very closely with them as well, and it's a very intricate aspect of medicine, which is, in the end, it might be intense emotionally, but I think the work itself is quite calm and nicely paced. Of course, if there's an emergency, then that's another situation, but that's always another situation in any field of medicine. So yes, okay. I'm gonna try to move on because I think time is ticking and I haven't even gotten to the journal bit yet. Okay, we're at 54 minutes and I haven't even gotten to the journal bits. Thank you for being patient with me, if you're here just for the journaling aspect of things. Okay. Oh, this video is gonna be long. I hope you're okay with that. So, how do you organize the notes you take for your classes? Do you take those digitally? For the first 2 years of medicine, I did take notes digitally with just a couple of things. When I was mostly revising, I would do some quick notes. However, in this third year of medicine, alongside with my increasing passion of analog archiving my life, I took all of my notes via writing them by hand this year. And I have an example just here by my side of one of them. Let's see. So for example, here's an example. This is the only time that I would work with rings. Rings don't work for me in a more personal aspect of things, but they work for me when it comes to academia. I did all of my notes by hand when I was in high school, and I did the IB degree for high school. I did all of my notes by hand. There was binders and binders of handwritten notes by the end of it, and I just realized that that worked so well for me. Why wouldn't I do that again this year, this academic year? So I handwrote all of my notes. They were so useful for my revision, and I think that I am going to continue doing this for the rest of medical school, if I'm honest. I have some kind of niche summaries in Notion, and in Notion is where I organize a lot of my kind of assignments and stuff, because there's quite a lot of like details when it comes to that, and all of it does not need to be written by hand, especially as I need to do all of it by, like, I need to write all of my assignments digitally anyway. So a lot of these kind of things I do keep in Notion, but my primary notes are here. They are just in a A5 Muji binder. I've written on A5 paper, mostly grid paper, but they were actually running out of it once, so I needed to switch to lined. But mostly grid paper. I have these division sets from Muji as well, and it works. It just really works, and I am happy that I took the leap to do this year, because basically I had been just loving writing by hand so much that I sometimes just would keep on writing in my journal when I would need to go to studying, and I just realized, okay, if I just write by hand when I'm studying, it's gonna make it more fun, and it indeed did do that. So yeah, I've actually been thinking about like showing you guys these folders multiple times, but somehow I wasn't sure if anyone is interested. But I think it really is also a big part of just my analog life now that I do have these notes here in person. So yeah, there's a lot more I can keep showing you, but it pretty much all looks like this, and I have a very similar, actually I have a set colors for each of the modules, because it just helps me with my memory to know that everything related to urology or nephrology, so kidney related things, are in green. It makes sense. Okay, I think that's that. So I do take my notes now in, oh, and there's some silly ways of remembering some things. But yeah, so I do take them now by hand. I organize them all in these binders. I have about 2 or 3 binders this year, so actually not that much, because they are very condensed and to the point notes. And while I'm in my classes, I don't usually carry around this big folder, but rather I have this smaller binder, also from Muji, and I have it in here. So this kind of one that is also kind of like a rings, but oof, my stuff is dropping. But how you can do this is that you can pull on both sides, and that opens up the rings, and then you can basically organize your notes however you wish and make it kind of in your own customized notebook. And then you just click them in like this, it closes, and this is kind of my notebook. It's an ever evolving notebook that you can just keep adding pages to, and then whenever I'm done with that module, I add it into those folders, so that I don't always have to carry the folders when I'm out and about. Okay, let's move on. I think we're now into the hour mark. I did not realize that I've talked this much. We'll see if I have to divide these videos into 2, but I would hope I don't. Let's see though. Okay, my favorite part of the video, the one I've been waiting for.